Hi guys, and welcome back to Ask a Lawyer channel. Hope you are having a great day. Today, I'm back with 4 new stories for you, all of them about evil stepmothers. Have you guys ever thought why a majority of the stepmothers hate their stepkids? Let's see if we can find out from the stories. Let's go to the first one. Enjoy the stories, guys, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. So, I'll try to give you some background. My dad has 3 children. My sister, the oldest, who was born while Dad was in high school. His parents forced him to marry our mom when it was discovered she was pregnant because it was the 80s. Me, born while Mom and Dad were in college. Baby sis, born to my dad and stepmom when I was in elementary school. After reading a lot of posts, I can definitely tell my older sister was Dad's scapegoat, and I was the golden child for Dad. Baby sis was stepmom's golden child. Some examples of this. Growing up, my older sister literally had all house cleaning on her chore list. I and my little sister had no chores other than keeping our grades up. If I or little sister got a bad grade, Dad or stepmom would sit with us and try to discover why, what they could do to help. It was definitely not a big deal. If older sister got a bad grade, she was a worthless piece of crap whose birth ruined our dad's life. When I was a sophomore in high school, I was in a pretty nasty breakup. And in that very emotional time, I sent a text to one of my friends, calling my ex a S. My ex found out, and her family got an attorney to sue me for S harassment. My dad just wrote a check and it went away. But that's how he found out I was having S. And he just laughed and gave me a beer when we got home. My sister got detention once for kissing her boyfriend on school grounds. My dad forbid her from ever seeing him again and grounded her for 2 actual years. She ended up not going to either of her proms because of it. The day after older sister graduated high school, she vanished like smoke, literally. We all went to bed that evening, and when we woke up in the morning, she never came down. My little sister was sent upstairs to fetch her, and little sister came downstairs with an envelope. Older sister's bedroom was sparkling clean, and she'd just left a letter on her bed that told Dad and stepmom not to contact her, ever, and said little sister and I were welcome to call her at any time. Just ask Mom for her number. Side note, my mom divorced Dad when we were little, like I was 3 and older sister was 4. Dad had custody of us because he was very wealthy and Mom was very poor, and he managed to win it with dozens of high-powered attorneys. Apparently, older sister had been planning for months with our mom to leave. Dad called the police to go get her, and the police said she's 18 and left. The chaos hit the fan pretty quick after that. See, older sister wasn't there to clean the house anymore. I'd never lifted a broom in my life, nor had my sister, and my stepmom and dad both acted like it was beneath them. There was a lot of arguing about who had to clean between them. Dad wanted to make little sister do it. Stepmom wanted to make me do it, before they compromised on hiring a maid. I didn't speak to older sister for a long time. To be honest, I had been my wealthy dad's football-playing All-American golden child my entire life. I was an entitled little crap. And it only got better about 10 years later, when my wife threatened to leave me if I didn't go to couples counseling with her about my family and my a-hole tendencies. I love my wife, so of course I went. It was a long road discussing a lot of things. I had therapy for myself for a while, and I realized how messed up our upbringing was. How most of my childhood was me having fun while my older sister worked. How my dad could pick apart and belittle any way in which I was not just like him, beyond the superficial. How this poisoned my other relationships, because I believed the crap my dad said about women, and when I got married, I expected my wife to be my maid and caretaker, and lashed out when she didn't. Getting past all that was a long road, but finally one day I called my mom, and then my sister. She was doing great, lived in Southern California, we live in Montana, with her long-term boyfriend. The guy that I have a feeling will be my brother-in-law in a year or 2. He's been asking Mom about older sister's jewelry tastes and ring size recently. I took my wife and kids out to see her. The kids had a blast, and it was wild. I saw sides of my sister I'd never seen before, and apologized for how I was when we were kids. But she waved it off, and talked about how our dad was a black hole that sucks all the goodness out of people that get stuck in his orbit. After older sister left, Dad had been real pissed. And he always was when the subject of her came up. There were multiple attempts to find her, some private detectives, before he got a certified letter, a cease and desist from older sister's attorney. Dad went to his attorney, who basically said, "Do not," and he had the sense to listen to him. However, older sister does come back to Montana to visit family from time to time. For years, Dad wouldn't find out about these trips till after they happened. Literally, everyone in our family except Dad and Stepmom has a decent, healthy relationship with older sister. Recently, our great-grandma was diagnosed with terminal pancreatic cancer. She's getting hospice care in the home, and family comes to visit her often. She and older sister are very close, and older sister is making plans to come out and see her. However, the drugs they have great-grandma on addle her a bit, and she told my dad about older sister's trip. Thankfully, she didn't know exact dates, so Dad just knows older sister is coming and is on the warpath, trying to find ways to duck with older sister. He's even come to me multiple times, desperate for information on her. Last night, he called me screaming, threatening to cut me out of his will if I didn't tell him the dates of her visit and where she's staying. I gave him fake dates, about 2 months off, and a different hotel. I'd like to just cut ties with him, but I can't. My dad and I work in the same field, and while I'm still a relative unknown, my dad is known and well respected within the field. I don't put it past him to use his influence there to cost me my job if I try to cut him off or don't give him the info he wants. It sounds like a rough situation, but look at OP. He made it out. He saw through everything and he rebuilt a relationship with his sibling. In my opinion, OP's dad is a real narcissist and an a-hole. I think OP should tell his sister that their dad is trying to get to her. OP needs to be clever in this situation because, as he mentioned himself, fighting with his dad can affect his career. So he either needs to move to another city and start his life from zero, or try to protect himself and his family from his dad. Sometimes, protecting yourself from the just no in your life means when you are in contact, pretending things are fine, while mostly ghosting and gray rocking, and keeping them on an information diet. About 5 years ago, after a string of interesting girlfriends, my dad remarried. I'm going to call her Lady Tremaine, after the evil stepmom in Cinderella. Now, prior to my dad marrying her, I had no opinion about Lady Tremaine. I had only talked to her for about an hour total, and she didn't seem interested in interacting with my brother or me. The trouble started after they got married. Lady Tremaine decided that not only did she not want anything to do with my brother and I, she didn't want my dad to have anything to do with us. She went so far as to ask us to pretend that we weren't his kids, that we were actually just his niece and nephew. And my dad went along with it, for a little while. Eventually, he would start doing things that flying my brother and I out when Lady Tremaine was away for work. Why he didn't just divorce the psycho is one of life's great mysteries. Anyway, a few months ago, as we were trying to rebuild our very shattered relationship with our dad, he died. Words cannot describe the utter pain and shock I felt when I got the news. My dad was very healthy, ate his fruits and vegetables, was regularly active, but his brain decided to pop a vessel and he didn't get to the hospital in time. So I'm trying to figure out how to get to California for the funeral, and I'm not doing a great job dealing with things. It took me 2 hours to pack my suitcase. When I get a call from my grandmother, she says that Lady Tremaine does not want my brother and I to go to the funeral, and it would be easier for everyone if we chose not to go. So that was a great conversation. I still ended up going to California. Right after we got there, my mom got a call from my grandmother saying that not only did Lady Tremaine not want us at the funeral, she would have us arrested for trespassing if we tried to go. Because, she was worried we would cause a scene. We ended up arranging a private viewing with some of the family because at that point, I was certain if I went to the funeral, I would most definitely be causing a scene. What an evil woman! What right does she have to forbid OP to come to the funeral? And what the hell is wrong with Grandma? She asked OP and her brother not to go to their father's funeral? I would be fuming. No one could forbid me to attend my family member's funeral. I understand why OP was calm not being able to go to the funeral. OP's dad made very poor choices and never stood up for his kids. Shame on a father like that. My older sister, Emily, 22 female, is from my dad's first marriage. My parents got together when my sister was 6 and I was 1 or 2. They married a few years later. My dad is technically my stepdad, but he adopted me when I was a baby and he always cared for me equally. I adore him. Anyway, my sister recently visited us for Christmas and the visit has left me thinking. Up until Emily was 12, she lived with her mom, and her mom was killed in a car accident. She had to come live with us. My parents had had 2 more kids by this time, my brothers. We all had our own rooms. When Emily came to live with us, my dad decided she needed her own room, as she was older, had just lost her mom, and was an only child back with her mom. My brothers now had to share. My mom went pretty ballistic over it, but my dad didn't budge. But I definitely remember all the snide comments my mom would make to her while we'd be eating dinner or whatever. Anyways, when my dad wasn't there, in retrospect, Emily was always nice and would play and share her PlayStation and Game Boy with us. My room was next to hers, and I could hear her crying in her room at night almost every night. I never said anything. I got off track, but I felt the need to explain Emily's situation. The summer Emily turned 16, she stayed with her grandma for the vacation. When she came home, it was like she had gotten pretty overnight. She was pretty before, but now everyone noticed, including my mom. I'm not gonna lie, even I was a little jealous of her. Anyway, my sister had a few friends. Some of them were boys. One of her best friends was a dude named Tyler. She would come home from the movies or being out with her friends, and my mom would grill her. She'd also ask really pointed questions that Emily hanging around so many boys would give her a reputation. Also at this time, my mom was constantly complaining to my dad that he was spending too much time with Emily and not the rest of us. He was teaching her to drive. She got herself a job at Starbucks and after a few months, finally earned enough to buy herself a car. My mom bitched about this too, that Emily was so spoiled and how she always got everything she wanted whenever she wanted. I've named a few instances, but stuff like this went on for years until my sister graduated from high school and left for college out of state. She has never come back home to live, not even for summer after her first year. I think she had 2 jobs to support herself at this time. She comes back about once a year to visit with us. Only ever for like a week though. While she was here, her and my mom got into a fight about how she never comes to visit and why she, my sister, doesn't love her siblings enough to visit more. My sister quietly said she'd visit more when my mom was dead. Everything went really quiet in the house after this, and my mom started crying, and my sister just went to her room and packed her bags. She left a few hours later. I don't know if she'll come back. I've always known that they don't get along, but I've just kind of given a blind eye to how my mom treated her through all the years. My brother and I just feel so bad, and we're so scared she's never gonna come home again. We love her. I feel scared and ashamed to reach out to her, but I really want to call her and tell her how much I love her. What can I do? How can I reach out to her? Yes, OP's mom is clearly jealous of her stepdaughter. A lot of people pretty obviously resent their stepkids because they think that their significant other's kid from a prior relationship takes away resources from their own kid or kids. That doesn't make them good people. Sounds like OP's sister has been putting up with the OP's mom's crap for years. She has had enough, and frankly, good for her. But OP shouldn't feel bad. OP was a child watching all of this unfold. OP literally didn't have any way of knowing the dynamics at play. OP didn't have the perspective she has now. And while she may have thought her mom was treating Emily kind of poorly, OP had no way of understanding the situation fully or doing anything about it. I think OP needs to talk to her sister and tell her how OP feels. But I think OP also needs to talk to their dad. He needs to know just how awfully OP's mother treated Emily, and OP should encourage him to reach out to her and make sure he has a relationship with her away from OP's mother. Update. I texted my sister a few hours ago. I told her I loved her, and if she wanted, she could call me. Originally, I was going to call her, but I got really nervous and didn't want to force her to talk to me if she didn't want to. Emily called me a few minutes later. She told me she was sorry for leaving the way she did, but that she had to get out of there, our house. I told her I was sorry for what happened and that my mom has been terrible towards her. She told me she was trying to ignore my mom this visit, but she couldn't, and she doesn't think she can come back here after she fought for years for control of her life. She told me every time she comes back, she feels like she just gives it right back up again. I let her know that I understood, and I told her I loved her again. She sounded really tired and sad. I feel bad for forcing it in there, but I told her if she ever wanted to, and it was okay if she didn't, that I would still like to have a relationship with her, and maybe I could visit sometimes. She just laughed and told me I could visit whenever I wanted, but convincing my mom was another story. I laughed and agreed too. Overall, the call consisted of me and her mostly telling each other we loved each other throughout the call. I know things still aren't fixed and may never be, but I feel a lot better knowing Emily doesn't hate me too, and that she's willing to have a relationship with me now or later. It's a big weight off my chest that I'm not sure I deserved. That's all I got for now, Reddit. I still need to talk to my dad about my mom, but I'm still working up the nerve. So, I have 6 step-siblings and 1 biological brother. I've never had a great relationship with my step-siblings, but my brother and I have always been super close. Back in May, my stepfather passed away. We'd had quite a bit of a rocky relationship over the years, and I had a lot of issues dealing with my emotions over it. My mother was absolutely heartbroken, and I did my best to be there for her during her grief. My step-siblings, however, were a bit mixed. Most of them blamed my mother for his death. He had a heart attack, and she wasn't there when it happened. She found him after the fact, hours later, and even tried to give him CPR, though he was long gone by that point. They tore into her, calling her a useless fat cow, and that they hoped she was happy now that their father was gone, and they could never repair their relationship with him now, and it was all her fault. One of my stepsisters, who we'll call A, though, clung to her and said she'd be with her through everything. This sister had issues, though, and I knew it wouldn't last. I told my mom to be wary of her, and my mom told me that A would never abandon her and that it was fine. It wasn't. My mother ended up moving out of the house, which my sister lives next door to. We spent one weekend getting the essentials out of the house. A didn't help, and my mom moves into a single-bed apartment. We took a while getting back to the house to move the rest of the stuff out, as it hurt my mom too much to go back and see everything. I couldn't get out there a lot because I was working long hours. A flipped out, started calling my mom names and saying that she needed to get off her ass and clean that house out and get rid of the broken down cars in the yard, as they made her sad because they were her dad's. Said that my mother was a useless excuse for a human, and she was the reason my father, who died when I was young, and her father were both dead. I flipped out. I told her that I was sorry she was grieving for her father and that I understood, but that she was way out of line and being a B to someone who just lost their husband. We got into a huge fight, and I ended up telling her to have a nice life and blocked her on all forms of social media, as well as all of my other step-siblings. Recently, though, some friends and other family members of mine told me that I overreacted and that I shouldn't have kicked all of them out of my life because they were all just hurting and didn't mean what they said. I told them that I was tired of their toxic behavior and didn't want the stress anymore. They're all calling me an a-hole and telling me that family is family and that I can't just cut them out of my life when they're already grieving. So, am I the a-hole for disowning my step-siblings after their father died? I don't think OP is an a-hole. Well done for standing up for his mother. She didn't deserve how her step-siblings were treating her. Grieving is not an excuse to treat other people without respect and to be an a-hole. Family is just an excuse for shitty people who want to be forgiven for shitty behavior. Also, blaming your mom for your stepdad's death? Unbelievable. OP and his family needs to go no contact with them.